chapter 103. Psalm 103, verse 13. It says, like as a father pitieth his children, so the Lord pitieth them that fear him. For he knoweth our frame, he remembereth that we are dust. As for a man, his days are as grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourisheth. For the wind passeth over it, and it is gone, and the place thereof shall know it no more. Okay. Now, 13. It says, like as a father pitieth his children, so the Lord pitieth them that fear him. All right. Now, I had looked at the word pitieth because I didn't want to give the wrong impression here. It's not a pity as in the way we say it these days. Like when you see somebody down on their luck, you pity them. You know. Anyway, it's in the Hebrew, I don't know how to say it, but I'm going to spell it. R-A-C-H-A-M. Racham, I guess. Anyway, it means to love or have compassion for. So, here it says, like as a father loves or has compassion for his children, so the Lord loves or has compassion for those that fear him. Okay? And the rest of it just kind of emphasizes why he has this compassion for us. Because our days are short and this life is as a vapor. But if you'll notice there in 15, it says, so he flourishes. What does that mean? So he prospers. When a plant flourishes, it means that it's very healthy, it's getting everything that it needs, and it's producing very pretty flowers or fruit. Okay? So it's flourishing. Even though this life is a vapor, God has compassion on us and allows us to prosper. Okay? Now, it's Father's Day, so I figured I'd touch on that a little bit today. We're talking about God the Father here. And any father that is worth speaking of knows that if you want to be a good father, you use an example that's worthwhile. And what is the best example that you can possibly choose is the relationship between God the Father and his children. Okay? And that's what we're looking at here, is that he has love or compassion for us that fear him. Now, what does that mean? It means that we reverence him. We have respect for him. Like we fear our dad. When I was a kid, it got to the point where mom spanking me with the fly swatter wasn't doing the job. But she could say these couple simple words, wait till your daddy gets home. And that sparked fear, because Dad didn't use a fly swatter. He used a 2-inch wide leather belt that you could hear coming out of the loops from a mile away. It was, I didn't fear him as a person, but I feared the consequences of not doing what I was told, because it was not fun. It was not fun. I mean, my dad was wonderful. He was basically my best friend, but punishment was not fun. He was a good enough dad to make sure that the consequences of me doing not doing what I was told, that punishment, that discipline, was something I didn't want to repeat. And that is exactly what God the Father does for us. When we step out of line, the consequences aren't fun. But if we're walking in His will, doing what we're supposed to be doing, then everything's wonderful. Even though this life is a vapor, like it says, we still are allowed to flourish. When I was doing everything I was told to do, me and my dad, my earthly father, would laugh. We'd have a good time. He'd buy me milkshakes and stuff on the way home from work. It was great as long as I was in His will, doing what He knew to be best for me. Then everything was wonderful. But when I stepped out of that will, when I stepped outside of what I knew to be right, then it became not so fun. You see, God does that for us. As long as we're in His will, everything's wonderful. We're going to flourish. We're going to have blessings. Everything's great. And don't get me wrong, we don't do it for the blessings. Okay, we don't do it for that. We do it because we're in a right relationship with God. But when our relationship's good, things are good. When it's good, it's good. But when it goes bad, it's bad. Okay? And that's what a loving Father does for us. He shows us the right path and then tries to keep us on that path. You ever been to a bowling alley and seen where they pull those little bumpers out and covers up the gutters? That's a father. Stay straight. Keeps us on the right path. Okay? Alright, now I'm going to jump over real quick to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Real quick. We'll look at a little something else. This is fairly familiar scripture. Ephesians 6:4 says, "And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord." All right, now, ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. And we know what that means. I mean, it's pretty much face value right there. We're not supposed to push our kids and push our kids and push our kids until they become angry. Because what does anger bring out? It brings out rebellion. When you're so angry at someone for just pushing you, provoking, then you don't want to live out the teachings of that person. You want to do the exact opposite. And that's what happens to a lot of kids. You know, growing up, I watched a lot of my friends that were raised by what I would consider overly strict parents. And when I say overly strict, I mean overly strict. Okay? Because my parents were stern, they were strict, but they weren't overly strict. But I knew a couple that were raised by overly strict parents, and the outcome of that was that once they got a little freedom, they got out from under mom and dad, they went crazy. They just went wild. It was like, I don't know what to tell you. It was, I've seen a lot of comedy movies talking about the Amish and that thing that they do. I can't think of the name. But anyway, they give them a chance to go out into the world and experience, the world outside of their little Amish village. And a lot of times in these movies, they get a little taste of it, and they go crazy. And they just go way out in left field, and they lose everything that they were taught in their village. Well, that's kind of what happens when we push too much, when we provoke too much. Okay? But that's what we're talking about here is, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Don't push them until they're angry about it, until they hold anger inside. Anyway, it says, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Now, I had to look up admonition in the Greek. It's It's another word that I don't know if I can pronounce right or not, but Nouthesia. Not even going to attempt it, but it means a mild rebuke or warning. Okay? So, we're supposed to refrain from provoking them to wrath, to anger, on a higher level, basically, is what wrath is. But bring them up in nurture and admonition of the Lord. So, what would be something if you're giving a mild rebuke or warning to someone? What is that? It's teaching. It's educating. Okay? We're not just supposed to see our kids do something and just spank them real hard and send them to their room. You're supposed to talk to them and tell them why what they did was wrong and why there are consequences for what they did that was wrong. Okay? It's educational. If you don't teach them what they did wrong, if you don't tell them what they did wrong and tell them how to avoid the punishment that is coming, then that's what that does. It confuses them. And when they get confused, especially when they're really young, when they get confused, they don't understand. Dad's just hitting me. He doesn't want me to have fun. Every time I try to do something new, he just hits me. What does that do? It provokes them to wrath. But when we educate them, we tell them, look, this is wrong what you did, and this is why it's wrong, and this is why I'm going to punish you. I'm punishing you so that you don't do it again. It's a reminder, hey, last time I tried this, I didn't like the outcome. So I'm going to try something different. Okay? That's what punishment's supposed to do for us. It's supposed to educate as well as remind us not to go that route again. So, now, we've read two scriptures. One talks about to have love and compassion for our children, like the Father has love and compassion for his followers, his children that fear him, that respect him, that live by the words that come out of his mouth. You see, that's what reverence is. When we reverence our Father, our earthly Father, then we respect him enough to live by the lessons or the words that he speaks to us. Same way with God the Father. Okay? So, we show love and compassion to provoke respect and reverence. And then we give mild rebuke or warning or educate with punishment. Okay? So, if we follow those things, if we raise our children following this example of that it was set by God the Father, then we will raise godly children. And they will come, like the Bible says, raise them up in the way they should go, and it shall not depart from them. Okay? When we raise them right, then they remember. They think about things. There is still today that I'll hear somebody say a cuss word or something, and I think, ooh, wait a minute, that wasn't me. Because I remember, going through childhood and doing things or saying something that my parents told me, don't say that. And I say it anyway and get caught. And then those consequences stick in there. And when I hear even when I hear someone else say those words, it's just like, ooh, wait a minute, I'm an adult. I don't know what does it even mean. But it sticks with you. You remember it. And that's what it's supposed to be for. Discipline is not supposed to be just a way to get your frustrations out by beating your children. Okay? It's not a way to get your frustrations out by screaming and hollering and mentally abusing them. It's a way to educate our children in the way that is the right path. when God disciplines us, when God gives us the discipline that we deserve by stepping out of His will, it is not to provoke us to wrath. It is not to make us angry. It's not because He doesn't want us having fun. You know, I used to say that all the time. I used to go in my bedroom when I was real young with pals. They just don't want me to have fun. They just don't want me to have fun. Of course, got a little older, a little wiser, and realized, some of those things that I was calling fun really wasn't all that fun. But anyway, when God does it, it's not for any crazy reason other than He wants us back on track. He wants a relationship with us. He wants a close relationship with us. He wants to talk to us every day. He wants us to wake up and say, "Good morning, God. Thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for allowing me to breathe another breath." And be happy to wake up and actively be in a relationship with Him. Just like us as fathers, we want our children to have an active, wonderful relationship with us. And you can't do that if you do it the wrong way. If you're too extreme, you're too whatever, then the children aren't going to want to have a good relationship with you. But if you're good to them, if we live by the example that is set day in and day out by God the Father, I mean, just think about it. We were born into sin. I mean, just look at the Israelite people. I mean, He was going out of His way to make sure that their Moses was taken care of, even though Pharaoh was killing all the boys. He made sure. Not only did He protect Moses, but He put him in the house of the man that was trying to kill him. And the man that was trying to kill him raised him and kept him alive, fed him in his own house, and then sent Moses back to them after he left Egypt and said, "Go free my people. Go tell Pharaoh to let my people go." So he goes back and he performs all these wonderful miracles to prove that God the Father was more powerful and above anything and everything that Egypt had to offer. And He did it. And He got them out of there. Went through all this trouble. And what does the Israelite people do? They whine and they complain and they turn to idolatry and they turn to other gods and they do all this crazy stuff that God wasn't happy with. They just didn't want to do what was right. And reading this, you just think, why? Why? But examine your own life. We're all like that. We're all like that. God tells us a simple path of how to live in His will and how to be, and we just don't want to do it. You think, well, that's all right, but I got things to do. What does that matter? What does that matter? Listen to your Heavenly Father. Know that He has compassion and love for you. Know that He wants what's best for you. And as long as we listen to the word that He tells us, then He will prosper us. He's just like our earthly father. As long as we do what we're told and we stay in the right way, everything's wonderful. Everything's wonderful. But also know that if we get out of the right way, there is punishment coming. There is correction coming. I like saying that. Because when you start doing something wrong, punishment's not the right way, but setting us back on track is a correction. When you take a wrong turn, follow the GPS. It'll bug you to death. Make a U-turn. Turn right on this one. Do this. It's okay. But it's correcting your route. And that's what a good father does. He sees when we get off course a little bit, and He corrects us in a loving educational way. So that, why do we educate? So we don't do it again. So we don't do it again. It's one thing to realize things are wrong to do, but it's a whole different thing when you know why it's wrong. But that's a loving thing. And I wrote down a little bit here. It says, as fathers, we're instructed to have compassion for our children and to educate them in the consequences attached to sin. We can look to our relationship with God the Father as an example of how our relationship should be with our kids. And as long as we're living by that, as long as we're using that, then our relationship will flourish with our children. You see, fathers, today is the day to celebrate our relationship with our children. That's what it is. It's not necessarily about anybody. It's just to celebrate our relationship with our children. To celebrate the relationship I had with my father. To celebrate the relationship you have with your father. And the wonderful teachings that we got throughout the years. I hope I've said something to bless you today. Is there any comments or questions?